Having kids in your home is always an adventure. It's amazing how good it can be on some days and how not so good on other days, but on every day, it is an adventure. If you have kids in your home, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You always love them, you just may not always like them. Can I get a witness? We all know what that's like. You spend some of your time trying to encourage them, other times trying to educate them, and a lot of your time just trying to split them up because they're fighting. A couple of days ago, my younger kids were fighting, and the younger one of the two offended the older one of the two. By offend, I mean he hit her. A fight ensued. I broke it up, as happens often. You break up the fight, and then you try to figure out exactly who did what to whom and who is more responsible than the other. Typically, if it goes on very long, they're both responsible, but you try to get back to the person who started the whole thing. I figured out through this process that it was my son and that he needed to apologize to his sister, and he did. Now, I'm not sure if he apologized because he was really sorry or because he thought if he didn't apologize, he'd get in more trouble. Regardless, he went to his sister while I was standing there and offered an apology to her that sounded very, very sincere. She then did what happens often in these situations. She was still upset. She wasn't done with him. She looked at me and said this: "Why should I forgive him? I know he did me wrong. I was there when he asked for forgiveness, but why should I forgive him? What he did was not okay." Again, as a parent, you've probably had this conversation, and maybe you've done what I try to do in moments just like that one. You explain that when something bad happens, the person who did the wrong needs to offer forgiveness. That the purpose of forgiveness is reconciliation. It's to renew or reconcile a relationship, and that only happens when the person who's been asked for forgiveness offers that forgiveness back. That's how relationships are renewed, they're restored, and two people can move forward together. You explain this to kids, and sometimes they get it, and sometimes they don't. Most of the time, 20 minutes later, they're playing happily again. What's crazy, though, from my perspective, is not watching kids go through this process. It's been watching adults go through this process. I've done my best to counsel couples where one person in that relationship has hurt the other one through words or something worse. They'll come to the point where they realize they've done wrong. They'll ask for forgiveness, and the person being asked for forgiveness will utter the same words my young daughter did. "Why should I forgive them?" We can see this in so many different situations, and certainly people do get hurt. Often, in fact, the person who did the hurting isn't sorry. They don't come and ask for forgiveness. In fact, they may continue to hurt others, and the person who's been hurt will look at them and ask this question: why should I forgive them? Now, the topic of forgiveness is, of course, a big topic. It's huge. For generations, the debate has been how to forgive and when to forgive, and the goal of forgiveness and what that process looks like. We could talk about all of those things, but not explain them fully in just a couple of minutes. But I'll tell you where all of that begins. Every part of that begins in the same point: by being willing to forgive someone who has hurt you or offended you or done something unkind to you. But so often, having been hurt, having experienced the physical pain of hurt or the emotional pain of hurt, the lingering bitterness even that sometimes goes with that hurt, it is so difficult to look at someone that's done something wrong and offer freely forgiveness. You know what the offer of forgiveness is? Whether it's received or not, the offer of forgiveness is this: it's the opening of the hand. It's a release. It's not a release of the crime. It's not saying it was okay. It's not jumping back into a bad situation. It's saying something like this to the one who's hurt you, to the one who needs forgiveness. It's saying this: I will no longer hold you captive. You now have to deal with the consequences of your actions. It means they don't answer to you anymore. And while you, as the one who's been hurt, might like for that person to continue to answer to you, often this happens in couples, doesn't it? You want them to answer to you. You want them to be indebted to you. You know what really happens? If you're unwilling to open the hand, if you're unwilling to offer release, it's you that stays in bondage. You've perhaps heard the analogy. It's a great one. Being unwilling to offer forgiveness to someone who's hurt you is like sitting in a jail cell with the door open. You're there because you've decided to stay there, not because you have no opportunity for escape. And so many who are unwilling to offer forgiveness, to extend forgiveness, to open the hand and release the one who's hurt. They're sitting in a jail cell, bitter, angry, overwhelmed emotionally, because instead of offering forgiveness, they live their life asking this question: why should I forgive them? Much larger question than we can fully develop right here, but here's a simple answer. Because you have a life that you were created to live, and as long as you're holding on to the pain, the hurt, and the past, you'll never fully move forward into that which you were created to do. This is not about getting over it. It's not about forgetting. It's not about letting someone off the hook. It's about surrendering what they've done to whatever will come and moving forward into that thing for which your life was given. Why should you forgive them? Because it's the only way to truly live.